Fallout from the Karen Reed investigation keeps growing. Today, the city of Canton revealed the results of an independent investigation into one of its own officers, former Sergeant Sean Goode, including wildly offensive text messages.
Most of the messages are so egregious we cannot read them on air. Earlier this month, we told you about a lawsuit filed by Karen Reed against the Canton and State Police Departments. This investigation has been going on in the background and confirms a lot of the material in that lawsuit. A warning, many of you will find these messages disturbing. Tonight, the town of Canton publishing the findings of a sprawling taxpayer-funded investigation into a Canton police sergeant tied to the Karen Reed case.
Who didn't even know that we had Miss Reed at the scene.
Former Sergeant Sean Goode testified in the trial, but his communications were brought to the town's attention by the district attorney's office last year during a separate investigation into fired state trooper Michael Proctor. The third-party firm combed through 200,000 text messages, photos, voice notes, and videos dating back to 2013, all while he was a Canton police officer. They found texts considered racist, sexist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic. The investigation reports Goode wrote to a friend, "I wish I had a lot of friends. I wouldn't spend money on a payday." In another one about a woman he knew, "She's the biggest. Before her maggot son died years ago, we dealt with her all the time. Can't wait to make the announcement when her other son dies. Knock, knock," with a eating grin. Ultimately, the investigation found sufficient and credible evidence that Goode violated several department policies. After publishing the findings, town leaders wrote, "We share in the clear and obvious anger of our community members. This is not simply a matter of policy, but of basic human decency. The people of Canton deserve better." And the report was prepared to recommend Goode's termination, but he resigned earlier this month from the Canton Police Department, and just days before Karen Reed filed her lawsuit against that agency. Brandon Truitt, WBZ News.
That's not exactly how Needs more help than that, brother. That's capacity. Everybody else has to lay out here for the turn it off. Not away.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, all cell phones will be turned off, not silent, off. Stow it away. Thank you.
All laptops turned off.
Yes, you sent the link. Yeah, there. Smart.
Well, we got documented after they're on the plane.
Which one's your wife? Oh, John, if you're gonna play with the computer, do something useful.
Do they need the number?
They said they're in the waiting on your Elizabeth Little's. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Not yet, Councilman. Did you say you found them or you didn't?
No, they're not. They're not. If you said they were under Elizabeth Little, they're not.
That's all there is.
You up, Council?
Hold on one second. Is it the 861 meeting ID?
Yes, sir.
That was the problem. That was I think they're in the wrong room. They're stationed up there.
All right. Here's what Tom said.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes.
Your Honor, for the record, this is Paul O'Keefe individually and his personal representative of the estate of John Joseph O'Keefe III et al. For C&C Hospitality LLC doing business as CF McCarthy's et al. Attorney Brillahante. Attorney Horwitz. Attorney Feld. Attorney Buck. Attorney Diller.
Present.
Attorney Holstag. Attorney Rose. Attorney St. George. Attorney Donovan. Attorney Dealey. Attorney McCaffrey. Attorney Hassett. Attorney Maravellis. Attorney Tang. Attorney Bell. Your Honor, Attorneys Little and Mason are appearing via Zoom.
Attorney Jackson's getting some free publicity as well.
Attorney Jackson. Present. Attorney Seligson. And Attorney Rosenberg.
Present, Your Honor. Thank you. So thank you, Counsel, for being here. I scheduled today to be in person because of the significance of what I was advised of last Friday, and because I find the quiet solemnity of the courtroom is a good reminder of the dignity by which courts are supposed to function. One commenter describes how every high-profile case now unfolds in two arenas, one governed by procedure and precedent, and the other by pixels, edits, and algorithm, and how the courtroom has become content, and the law has become a spectacle. I recently held a hearing on a non-party motion for a protective order. I required the moving party to provide certain information. Such material was filed together with the motion to impound. A hearing that included the motion to impound was held on a Monday morning. I allowed the motion to impound during the hearing. The affidavits of the moving party and the attorneys were impounded. Following that morning hearing, I found that there was insufficient information to support a delay in the deposition of the non-party from going forward. However, I further found that given the claims made in the filings, I would delay making a final decision on the motion until later that day to give the non-party's counsel the opportunity to supplement the record before me. I scheduled the matter for further hearing that afternoon at 4:15 with the expectation that there would be additional filings. At 2:22 p.m. that day, the non-party's attorney emailed the clerk of this court and all counsel of record, excepting one, additional materials in support of the motion for a protective order. The filing included a motion to impound additional materials. Exactly 30 minutes after the email to counsel of record of the additional material, which included sensitive and private medical information. Similar information to what was in the exhibits to the filing and marked provisionally impounded was posted to an X account at 2:52 p.m. Upon learning this information, I ordered that the parties and counsel provide a certification to the court as to all facts known to them as to any dissemination to anyone other than parties and counsel in this matter of any of the contents of the material impounded on June 8, 2026, and I scheduled this appearance for today. I received certifications from all party and counsel, 32 of them in total. No one apparently has disseminated, nor are they aware of any facts regarding the dissemination of the contents of impounded material to any person or entity other than the parties and counsel in this matter. However, somehow, an ex-account holder, not part of this case, apparently received information that was at least provisionally impounded. Orders of the court have been violated either directly or at the very least in spirit. If these orders are to have any effect, all parties involved must operate with integrity. Rule 13C of the Uniform Rules of Impoundment Procedure imposes a duty on all persons to protect the confidentiality of impounded material. Additionally, Rule 3.6 of the Rules of Professional Conduct prohibits lawyers from making extrajudicial statements that they know or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding. In cases like this, where all parties involved are aware of the public attention, I expect that everyone is taking every precaution to preserve confidential information, to follow the rules of the court, and to adhere to my orders. Because of the disclosure of sensitive private information, I temporarily stayed further discovery of the non-party. If necessary, I am fully prepared to make such order permanent as permitted by Rules 26 and 30. To any issue counsel may raise as to the management of discovery issues being within my discretion, I invite you to look at the following cases. In the 2003 case of Buster v. George W. Moore, Inc., the SJC stated, in general, discovery matters are committed to the sound discretion of the trial judge. In a 2002 appeals court case, Mattoon versus the City of Pittsfield, the court stated, trial judges have broad discretion to make discovery and evidentiary rulings conducive to the conduct of a fair and orderly trial. In the 1987 case of Sullivan A. versus B. Goode, the SJC stated the conduct and scope of discovery is within the sound discretion of the judge. In Cronin versus Strayer, the 1984 case, the SJC stated, we remind judges that the scope and timing of discovery is within their discretion, and the prevention of discovery abuse is sufficient justification for the authorization of protective order. With this authority at hand, judges should not hesitate to exercise appropriate control over the discovery process. And finally, in the 1987 case of Campagna versus the Board of Directors of the Massachusetts Housing Finance Agency, the SJC stated that Rule 37 affords a judge broad discretion to impose whatever sanctions are just in order to ensure that the discovery process operates efficiently. The malicious publication of private information concerns me. Whatever opinion that one may have of a non-party, even if warranted, such an opinion does not allow for the disparate treatment of such individuals. All people deserve fair and equal treatment in our system of justice, regardless of any personal characteristic, as abhorrent as some of them may be. What I am looking for is for the parties is adequate assurances that their discovery served justice and not any desire to weaponize the rules for pettiness and profit. If the parties and lawyers would enter into an agreement to hold private, personal information in confidence, and if the terms were acceptable to me, I would consider entering it as an order of the court so that any violation would be grounds for a contempt finding and appropriate sanction, including dismissal or default. Such an order would need to be more than a stipulation that deposition testimony can only be used for the purposes of this case. I encourage the attorneys to confer and to seek to reach an agreement. In the absence of an agreement, I will consider whether to enter an order based on my plenary authority to control, manage, and oversee the conduct of discovery. While you are conferring and seeking to reach an agreement, I will again remind you, as I have quite often, that the discovery clock is ticking. My final request to counsel with an appearance in this matter is to familiarize yourself with Rule 3.6 of the Rules of Professional Conduct relative to publicity. The rule sets forth a basic general prohibition against a lawyer's making statements that the lawyer knows or should know will have a substantial likelihood on materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding. The rule applies to lawyers who are or have been involved in the investigation or litigation of a case and their associates. As the comment to the rule notes, it is difficult to strike a balance between protecting the right to a fair trial and safeguarding the right of free expression. However, preserving the right to a fair trial for everyone necessarily entails some curtailment of information that may be disseminated prior to trial, especially where trial by jury is involved. If there were no such limits, the result would be the practical nullification of the protective effect of the rules of forensic decorum and the exclusionary rules of evidence. The rule takes into consideration that the public has a legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings, particularly in matters of general public concern. However, I'm not so sure that churning the waters to generate social media coverage necessarily can result in a legitimate interest in the conduct of judicial proceedings. Read the rule, especially if you have never done so. Adhere to it. We'll be ready to face the consequences for failing to do so. I remind counsel of what one commentator called the quiet expectation of fairness that we have as citizens. Such expectation is based on the framework the founders of our country built 250 years ago entrusted future generations to maintain. Counsel, do your part to maintain the quiet expectation of fairness. Do not succumb to the attraction of seeking to influence this case through social media. Be what a trial lawyer should be, one that tries their case in the courtroom. And remember the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 221, Section 28, relative to the oath of office for an attorney in Massachusetts, which provides, in part, I solemnly swear that I will do no falsehood. I will delay no man for lucre or malice, but I will conduct myself in the office of an attorney within the courts according to the best of my knowledge and discretion, and with all good fidelity, as well to the courts as my clients. So help me God. I wish all of you a happy 4th of July on the anniversary of our America's 250-year-old democracy. May it continue to succeed with all of us working to maintain the rule of law. Thank you.
Court, all rise.
For the record, this matter is continued to July 10th, 2026 at 2 p.m. for hearing on motions to compel the criminal fourth session.
Court stands in recess.
There's no opportunity to be heard?
There obviously no opportunity to be heard.
I was unaware. I'm just covering for Clerk Donovan today.
Is there an opportunity before everybody departs to let the judge know that we would like to be heard?
Absolutely.
I was invited to a wonderful all-black church. And when I got there, I came in on Sunday morning, sat down over here, and looking around, and this just never happened to me before. It dawned on me I was the only person not of color in that church. People were gracious, kind, it couldn't have been better, but I just never been where I was the only person not of color. I'm sitting there, and a lady comes in, and she says, hello. I said, hello. I said, how are you? She said, fine, how are you? Finally, she sits down because she turns to me. And I didn't understand, this lady's going to change my life forever. I will never, ever be the same. I will leave that service wanting to be like her. We're sitting there just looking at each other, and finally she turned to me and she said, what are you doing here, white boy? Now, in my whole life, no one had ever called me white boy. And it's not. She said it polite, but white boy. I said, well, and I started calling myself white boy. She said, what are you doing here, white boy? I said, well, white boy's going to preach this morning. She said, you're going to preach? I said, yeah. She said, isn't that it? She looked at me and she said, you got the stuff, white boy? I beg your pardon? She said, don't play stupid, white boy. She said, if the preacher ain't got the stuff, we don't have church. And she says, you got the stuff or you don't got the stuff. If you don't got it, you sit right down here and let somebody stand up there and got the stuff. She said, now you got it or not? I said, white boy's got the stuff. I didn't know what to say. She said, they tell you how we do stuff here? I said, no. Oh, she said, well, let me tell you. She said, and we're going to sing for at least an hour. I said, an hour? Oh, she said, yeah, you love God, you love to sing. She said, you know, man, you don't love God. Good chance you're not even saved because you don't like to sing. And she said, man, singing drives the world out. It gets the devil mad and brings God in. We get to praise him. She said, sometimes we sing more than enough. You love to sing, white boy? I said, oh, yeah, I never get enough of it. Right, I mean, I'm telling you. She said, you hear me, white boy. We didn't come to get out. We'd come to go to church. If you come to get out, it's best you not come. She said, whatever stuff you got, make sure you do it. And don't cut it short. She said, now could you do me a favor with her? I said, sure. She said, could you revoke? I said, okay, so let's come. She said, no. I said, well, why do you need me to revoke? She said, because when I get sick, I need to revoke. She said, you see, I'm addicted to praise. She said, I don't like it. I don't love it. It's the passion of my life. Praise God. Would anybody accuse you of being addicted to praise? I moved over, good thing I did. That dear sister, man, she got singing. You know what? She's singing and crying, and pretty soon I'm crying. And I don't know why we're crying. I want you to hear me. Passion took me in. Finally, the preacher said, come on up here, David. I remember when I walked away, she said, give it all, white boy, give it all. She didn't say that unkind. You got to understand. I'm up by the preacher, and I said, you know that lady down there? He said, yeah, you're sitting down there by Abby, Sister Abby. I said, preacher, she's amazing. I'm telling you, she has a passion for praising Jesus Christ. A passion. He said, well, did she share her testimony with you? I said, no. He said, well, David, let me tell you. He said, just a couple of years ago, her husband and 2 junior high boys walked down to the bus stop. They're going to catch the bus to school, her husband a bus to work. Early in the morning, some shotguns came out and killed her 2 boys and her husband. He said, then David, unthinkably, they got out of the car and blew the heads off her 2 sons and took them. I met her at the hospital, and I said, Abby, what do you want to do? She said, let's have church. I need to get back to my passion. He does all things well. Oh, man. He's in control. I said, wow. He said, did she tell you she has stage 4 cancer and no money for medicine? I said, no, she didn't tell me that. All she did was tell me about her Jesus. And all I know is I want to be like her.
Man. that gets me. Oh. This kind of testimony is that which makes a room silent, which keeps you from even being able to talk. I mean, her husband gone, her son's gone, unthinkable tragedy. And then stage 4 cancer and no money for medicine. At the beginning of the story, he's saying that when he met her, she did not lead with her pain. She did not lead with her tragedy or with bitterness at all. All she did was tell him about Jesus, how she loves to praise Jesus. And that's not normal, my friends. This is truly supernatural. This is not human strength. It's only by the grace of God carrying somebody through what should have crushed them. And I think this is why stories like this hit us so hard, because most of us say that we love God, but then life starts to squeeze us. And when life begins to squeeze us, what comes out? Unfortunately, a lot of times, bitterness, complaining, anger, fear, hating God. But what about praise? The Bible says in Hebrews 13:15, through him, then let us continually offer up a sacrifice of praise to God. A sacrifice of praise means praise that costs you something. Praise when you don't feel like it. Praise when you don't understand. Praising through your pain and your grieving and the wounds that are still fresh in your heart. Not because the pain's not real. The pain is real. This loss is real. These tears are genuine. But Jesus is also genuine. He is also real too. And that is exactly what Sister Abby understood, and what I believe God is using her to teach us right now. She's not praising God because life was easy. She's praising God because he's worthy. And that's the difference. Her passion was Jesus, not a man, not white boy, not a preacher or platform, but him. And that is so powerful and so convicting. Because we live in a generation, it seems to me, that we are so easily offended, easily get bored at church, easily get distracted and pulled away from the things of God. But here's a woman who had every earthly reason to collapse and run away. And instead, she worshiped. So thanks for being here, my friends. I hope this story touched you like it did me. I pray that Sister Abby will continue to move hearts and lives as you watch this video and as many people watch this video. So hit that like button. Let's get this out there to more people. If you haven't yet, subscribe to Truth Be Told. I'd love to have you with me on this truth journey. As we lift up Jesus, we proclaim him as King, and we expose the lies in culture. I thank you again. We'll see you next time. Truth Be Told.